So it looks like you're doing really well. You just hit Challenger. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It was just last night actually.
That's awesome. So things have been feeling pretty good then lately, huh?
Yeah, I think so, but it's hard to tell if it's just like a if I'm like running good, if I'm just, or if I'm like I'm just getting lucky with my, RNG or if I'm actually like making the right decisions.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Especially
been,
because like I haven't swung down too much yet, and I'm
mhm.
definitely like prepared for that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of there's definitely a lot of variance patch to patch. Like there's a lot of top Challenger players who will regularly dip into GM and then kind of climb back up. So
yeah.
I think I mean, even for me, every set I get into Challenger, but I kind of am in that middle zone between Challenger and GM, and really kind of depends on the patch and how much it clicks.
Uh-huh. I did struggle a little bit in the beginning of the patch, like everything kind of getting forecasts being like a little weaker and like the conditions changing a little bit.
Hmm.
And
What?
I
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think I'm not comfortable yet playing some of the lines I see a lot of people playing like mages. Like I don't think I've had a single mage game yet this patch. Just because
Mm.
I feel like I'm pretty unfamiliar with the conditions.
Hmm.
And it's also like three-way contested every
Yeah,
game.
yeah. One of the hard parts with mages, especially, is like the units you hold are obvious. But I think one of the like I just played a mage game this morning.
Hmm.
I think one of the key ways to really make sure you can be successful with mage is in stage one to be, and this was like, I think this really clicked for me after I watched a bunch of Grea's VODs,
Yeah.
is just being super active about scouting in stage one and seeing how many people are holding mage units. Because if people don't have like Soraka pair, Seraphine pair at like 1-4, usually
Uh-huh.
it's going to be much harder for them to angle mage. Because or if you get like a Vex or Vagar out of the box.
Yeah.
Um, because Mage, you really do need to hit ahead of tempo. Otherwise, it's really hard to stabilize and cap out.
Hmm.
Because you either, if you're playing the one cost reroll, you need to hit ahead of tempo, and then usually you need to go to level 7 and then roll for Vex 3. That's what I actually learned from Demacian Raptor. Is was it Galio 3 is just really not anywhere near as stable as Vex 3 is.
I
So
see.
in order for that to really work, you have to be uncontested um, and you need to hit ahead of tempo. So
Yeah, and have enough gold to reroll on 7 as well.
exactly, yeah. So that's why streaking early is really important, and especially if you hit Soraka too early, getting that
Uh-huh.
early rumble makes a big difference. I didn't mention that in my video,
Hmm.
but the sugarcraft stacks can actually add up over time, and then getting like kind of, if you get that Soraka early, and if you're on a portal with extra items, which you want anyway
Hmm.
for reroll, so that's another condition, is if you're on a portal that gives you extra items. Anytime you're playing reroll, you want those extra items, because usually you might hit your Soraka 3 and your Seraphine 3, but usually you can't itemize both of them.
Yeah.
So that's also why Transfiguration, especially with Mage, is really good, since it gets the synergy with Vagar, and
Hmm.
you get more items. Um, but yeah, just being able to get to level 7, and then if you get that sugar going early, you also get more gold later if you can
Yeah.
get to the 7 sugar stacks, or I forget what it was called. But yeah, that can help you a lot when you're thinking about mages, is particularly in stage one. If you are holding, I would pretty much always hold Soraka and Seraphine, just because they're just strong early game units, and you don't have to play into mages. You can go into like Rise, for example.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're holding them and you notice nobody else is holding mages, that's a very clear signal that you can go mages.
That makes
And of course, you
sense.
need rods and tears.
Yeah, yeah. So like, is the more, I guess, conventional line to go for this Vex 3 front line? Because I've also see people, maybe this is more of a contested situation, but they would like fast 8 and play some kind of Tom 2 frontline, or you know, even I've seen like Tarek 2, just any kind of 4 cost upgrade, and then play like 7 mages with like Nami and Mage +1 or something like that.
Yeah, so you could definitely go eight, like after you hit Soraka or Seraphine. Usually you could just hit one of them and then start pushing levels because you don't have
Yeah.
enough items for the
Hmm.
other. Um, if you're contested and someone's holding Vexes, then yeah, just push levels and you're probably not playing for first. At that point, you're probably playing hopefully for like top three.
I
But if
see.
you're not contested, then you can stop at 7 and roll.
So 7 mages is not as important as Vex 3.
So 7 mages definitely gives you a huge spike. It really depends on whether you think you can play for the win. This is another
Okay.
idea that Demasian really pounded home with me recently in our
Uh-huh.
coaching sessions. Is in stage 4, you should be actively scouting the lobby and seeing if you have win out potential. So like for example, if you're playing on was it trainer golem and someone has like 10 portal possibility or 9 fairy, you know you can't win out. So at that point
Hmm.
you should push levels and preserve HP, try to get a top 4. But
Hmm.
if the rest of the lobby doesn't look like it has a higher cap than you do, if you can hit, you know like I actually just played a game where I hit actually let me pull up the
It's interesting, and like sack the maybe some rounds in stage 4 for the potential to go top 2 maybe.
or actually can you see that? I just sent it to you on Discord.
Um yeah, I can.
Or actually, I could just share it with you here. Let me see. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this game, I first hit Seraphine 3,
Hmm.
and I used that to tempo into level 7. And
Hmm.
this game, I scouted early, and I found that there was nobody else playing mages, which is the reason I decided to reroll it.
Yeah.
Uh, and at level 7, not only was I was like rolling every round even before level 7 just because I had transfiguration to get more items for all of my
Uh-huh.
units, but I also found that the rest of the lobby wasn't going to cap as high, though obviously I mean I just put out a video on like this blaster shapeshifter thing,
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
really high cap, although even when I lost the final fight it was like I barely lost. It was like one Vagar cast away from me winning.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
He has
so like
Eternal Growth Plus too. That must be crazy, crazy board.
yeah. So I mean, 7 mages definitely gives you a higher like boost early, but your
Uh-huh.
long term cap is if you could get Vex 3 and Vagar 3 plus one of your 1 cost 3-starred.
I see. Yeah, I mean 7 mage looks so broken in the stats, but I guess, part of the reason is like you have to be in the position to go for it. Like maybe just throwing in a Nami 1 plus an emblem is not kind of the same effect as having a Vex 3 and then 7 mage.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Okay, yeah, I mean I'm not comfortable enough on the line to know yet, but the tips about that you gave me about these item augments and the tempo, like thinking about it as a tempo thing, it's pretty helpful. I've also
Mm,
seen people like Tekken Rumble in stage 2, and I guess like that's the reason why. Like I've seen people drop like even 3 mage sometimes to play this Rumble for I guess Vanguard and then Sugarcraft.
mm.
I was wondering what that's about, but the sugar really does add up. Or is that only if you have Soraka 3 and not Seraphine 3? Like if you have more copies of Seraphine, like would you, prioritize something else?
At level 4, the Seraphine, Soraka, Rumble, and Galio just fit really nicely together.
Yeah.
So like I think that just makes sense, just trait wise. So in this game, I had Seraphine 3. I didn't hit Soraka 3 until much later, and then I
Hmm.
moved items over. Um, but yeah, like it's just very strong. And then if you don't ever hit Soraka 3, I would have replaced Rumble with Tom Kench and then tried to get Xerath in just because I was rolling for charms so much.
I
That
see.
would
I
have been
see.
the really high cap out at level 9 if I could have gotten there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Any other questions you have, just like in general, before we dive into game?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I've I'm a lot more comfortable on tempo lines than lost streak lines.
Hmm.
And actually the VOD that I was thinking about going over with you today is a tempo more of a tempo game than a lost streak game, but I just wanted to ask like in like I think I have a lot of problems playing my stage 3. Like I open maybe I hit like what doesn't kill you or double down or something and I'll open stage 2 and maybe angle towards like a kalista line. But then in stage 3 I feel like I definitely making a lot of mistakes. Like should should I be trying to get some kind of board together to preserve HP? Or I mean, can I just pull up a VOD like really quick and then maybe like tell you just that's isolated stage 3 stuff that I'm talking about? Yeah. Back on this game, I think first of all, like my augment choice was kind of weak. This is like a champion conference, and then I was kind of wanted to play some kind of karma warriors with these given items,
Hmm.
but I ended up missing pretty badly on my subservice. And so I
Yep.
had Kalista, and I didn't really see any potential for win streak here. With I couldn't like really play any active traits. I didn't have a warrior or even a bastion to play. So I decided to kind of open and try to get some bows and then angle Callista. And then in stage
Yeah, one comment I would even make on just the selection of subservice is usually you want to try to tempo with it because it once everyone catches up in stage 4, it is actually quite weak since you're kind of down a prismatic. So the whole idea is that you hopefully hit your 2-star forecast before everybody else, but also you were able to ideally like save a bunch of HP early.
I
Um,
see.
so the thing with you had sword, belt, vest as your
Mhm.
item components, and usually, I mean, you could definitely slam Dumbfire to tempo, but like that's clearly not ideal. Which means that your best, like, what item slam would you be thinking about making out of those
Uh,
components?
maybe Sterak's and then play Shapeshifter Nasus.
Hmm. And so then you're leaning on finding which forecasts to be able to put Sterex on.
Definitely Fiora.
Yeah, so you're really betting on subservice because it gives you 4 shop forecasts in the shop. So
Uh-huh.
you're like kind of really betting hard on like getting that exact, and you could play Olaf too, right?
Oh yeah, and
Uh,
Olaf.
but like it's still if you whiff on Olaf and Fiora, you're kind of like this in a really rough spot. So that's like maybe one consideration when you're thinking about taking the subscription service.
Yeah, I'm definitely not happy with that, especially since it was Champion Conference, so it's like pretty much guaranteed everyone's gonna hit their 2-star forecasts.
Hmm.
Um, but like in this stage 3 spot, oh sorry, this stage 3 spot, like I feel like I'm really low on HP and I need to preserve somehow, but I also don't feel very rich at all, and I'm not really sitting on like that many meaningful pairs. So I
Yeah.
decide to kind of semi-sack this stage as well, and then by the time I hit, everyone else has hit their units, and I just bleed out. So like, do you think it's most of the situation that I found myself in can be explained by augment choice, or is there
Can you go
some
to
kind of?
your like 4-2 board?
Oh yeah, 4-2 board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So So one thing I'm noticing here is if you did sack, um, if you did decide to sack early game, you really want to make sure you have ideal recon items.
Hmm.
Um, because for you to be able to, if you're going, so this is like a general principle for early stage sacking. If you're playing like what doesn't kill you or fortune, whatever it is, if you're sacking early game, you need to basically have bis, because if you don't have bis and you can't stabilize in stage 4, you just bleed out. And someone's probably going to high roll something. So even if you can beat like, 6 out of the 7 players in the lobby, all it takes is for one high roller to like knock you out and give you a bot 4, even if you have a really strong board.
I see.
Which
Yeah.
also is why, like, when you start with that sword belt vest, the belt and vest are great. Like, you want warmogs and stoneplate, but that
Hmm.
sword is challenging with kalista,
Yeah.
um, and just
I got
makes it really,
dropped another one on
yeah,
wolves, and then I really my items just didn't come together.
yeah. Oh, also one other thing with kalista that I actually just learned in a coaching session with Demasian yesterday,
Yeah.
uh, positioning wise. uh, Let me see. You mind if I share my screen?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. So positioning wise, with Rakan, especially now that there's both Tom Kench um, and like Briar and Shyvana running around,
Hmm.
it's so important to make sure that your Kalista is not being CC'd. So in that last where you paused, you had like all your units clumped together on one side.
Yeah.
So I think you had like um, I forget exactly where you had all your units.
Yeah. No, it was something like that.
Who am I missing? Lilia and
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so you had like some other unit here. So when let's see, so like if let's say you're playing against this like Briar and Shyvana board, or even
Hmm.
like Tom Kench, like if they put their units like where this Tom Kench is, and like or
Hmm.
Briar and Shyvana here, these are gonna like fly in right here and just stun your entire board, or Tom Kench is gonna hit your whole board,
Yeah.
which in a scaling, because you're playing a scaling stall like battle, right, with Kalista, it's so important for um, Kalista to not get stunned, and Rakan too. So what I learned is that so ideally later game it's Camille here.
Hmm.
So what they suggested is you actually want to do something like this, where
Hmm. Want to
this
bait
makes
the
sure,
AoVs?
yeah, that they're gonna stun this way,
Uh-huh.
and you have a Camille here just to defend the like this side. And then you don't want to do middle because you risk getting wrapped.
Yeah.
And then the key thing is you could put your Zillion here, but then that increases the odds of, like, for example, if their whole board was left side, you might like kind of have your units walk this way, and then they
Hmm.
might actually jump in like somewhere over here. So the really safe way is like to have Zillion here, and you're guaranteed that they're not gonna CC your Callista, which can definitely in a lot of fights make the difference between whether you win or lose.
Yeah. Does Rakan in this A3 position prevent wraps? I feel like there's times where I'll be playing like a multi-striker cast 3 board, and if you put Sid in that like bottom left spot, like instead of targeting the Rakan, it'll target some unit. Like, I guess maybe that's why you
You're
don't put
saying
any
if he
units
has the
behind
spirit,
Rakan. Yeah,
but
like, is there any chance that he targets Camille and then kills Camille, moves on to Callista? I feel like I've run into, maybe not if
so
I put Callista on the second row, but definitely in that
usually
third row.
Cassidon should walk either to one of these, right? So like let's say you're talking about, like, let's say he goes here and then here.
Yeah, is that why you put her in the second row?
Yeah. Uh,
Hmm.
or at least that was their suggestion. I mean, even if you had it here, I mean, the main reason is you want Rakan to take aggro first over Camille, right? So I guess there may
Yeah.
be a situation if it's like this, they start attacking here or Kassadin walks here, yeah, I guess that
Hmm.
would be 50-50. So that would be the reason you start back here.
I see. And then in this board, like it should always target Rakan.
Yeah. Even if you are here though, and like Kassadin goes here and kills Camille, Kassadin should go to Rakan first over Kalista, but this is just safer, and then Camille also will like stun and potentially displace the Kassadin, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This makes sense. Yeah, it definitely felt a little too clumped, and I think I did lose some fights that game because of some Tom Kench. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I shouldn't have lost, but I guess the Ginsu scaling really makes a difference.
Yeah,
I see.
because that uptime is not only more damage for Callista, it's a lot of healing for Rakan as well.
Right. And is there any concerns about, or like where do you think like Callista as a comp, like finds itself in the meta? Because if it's definitely not as oppressive as it used to be last patch, and
Mm-hmm.
Rakan is definitely squishier, and I've seen this that like the hunter boards like really do a good job if you solo frontline Rakan, like really do a good job of bursting it before Callista can stack.
Yeah,
So like
so
do you
I lost.
avoid some solo frontline situations sometimes or
Yeah, so Demacian was also suggesting against some boards, especially if the other board has like Zillion.
Mhm.
Um, so usually they just like solo or like middle the Zillion. If if your one of the ways your Rakan gets taken out is he gets CC chained and then
Mhm.
he can't, shield. So one way is you can try to, especially if they like are actually trying to target your Zillion, then you actually or target your Rakan.
Mhm.
You want to swap sides, um, and then put like a Lilia up here so
Mhm.
that your Rakan doesn't get targeted by that Zillion. And that actually makes a huge difference, especially against those hunter boards, because they're trying to burst down the Rakan. And the
Yeah.
difference in Rakan getting CC'd or not could be the difference on whether he survives.
Yeah, I didn't think the Zillion was such a big consideration. I was more thinking about, putting other units next to him or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. I want to be mindful of time. So we,
Oh,
we
yeah.
could definitely do like just questions for the whole session if you prefer, or if you want to do game, I would suggest that we jump into game.
Okay, yeah. I think I'd rather do the game.
Okay.
Okay, so it was a item payout.
Hmm. So do you mind pausing here?
Yep.
Um, what's your thought process behind selling the Bard versus the Shen?
Um, I thought maybe I'd find a Kali or a Hecarim. Actually, there's no chance, probably a low chance I find a Hecarim, but I feel like he has some place in the multi-striker board, but I'll probably end up selling him anyways. But once I got dropped the sword and glove, I thought it's even less likely that Bard would be anywhere in my stage 2 board, so
Okay.
yeah.
And what are you thinking as far as these item components, like as possible early slams or direction?
Um, I'm thinking I play either IE Hunter or I'm pretty set on multi strikers. I think, especially with the jacks too. So maybe I slam a JG on the jacks and then play around the sword.
Okay.
Or if I find a Kassadin, I do have the Twitch 2 in shop. So
Okay. Do you mind going back there?
Yeah. To the augments?
Can you go back so we can see your board as well? With okay, yeah. So you did you get dropped in gold?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So or okay, maybe you can forward just a little bit so we can see your item components as well.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right. So from here,
Hmm.
uh, you decided to go with the jacks over the Twitch, and I know you're short on time, but assuming you had a lot more time,
Hmm.
what do you think are the pros and cons of playing down the Twitch angle versus the jacks angle?
The
And
pros
what
and
would be like
cons.
kind of your item slams in each of the scenarios?
Okay. I could play a Twitch 2 into Varus. Maybe I would slam an IE on the Twitch and then even Shroud or Morello because Rod can be hard to kill.
Hmm.
But I guess my consideration was that my front line would be a little bit suspicious, I think. I wouldn't know what to play with the Twitch. I didn't have any hunters and I didn't have a blitz pair. I guess I could play just Twitch and Jax and then find my way into a board later.
Hmm.
But I did already have the multi-striker trait and the Jax too. So I was thinking I would most likely play around that. Um, Looking on it now, I think probably my best bet was to sell the Shen and buy everything, and then see what I hit in the next shot, and just be a little bit more open to the other lines.
Yeah. The other
Um,
question I had, I don't know, I didn't notice if you did this, and this is kind of a thing that I've really started to focus a lot more on in my own play is how much did you scout in stage one?
um, I don't remember how much I scouted this game, but I think before 2-1, I didn't really scout as much.
Hmm.
Would that be in order to see if anybody had like a similar Varus contest spot?
Yeah, I would say if there were a bunch of people holding Twitches and Nomsies,
Hmm.
then I would definitely lean more towards the multi-angle. But if you saw this is kind of like the Mage game I was just showing you, if you
Yeah,
saw that there was literally nobody playing Hunters, and you have that wide open, that would maybe angle you a little bit more in that direction. Since Hunters, from a like a mid to late game standpoint, just has a lot more upside as far as cap goes.
yeah.
Uh, than playing multis.
I see. So you think in general, if or like in a vacuum, like hunters usually cap it higher, so it should be more frequent line.
Yeah, because with multis, it really like Kassadin's really the main carry, right? And you have no
Hmm.
Kassadins. Like so
Hmm.
you can maybe tempo with Jax, which he's a great early game kind of tempoing unit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to stick with multis anyway. Like what items would you slam on Jax?
Um, I think I ended up slamming BT and JG, but thinking
Hmm.
back on it, probably more correct to slam Morello and play open glove and then flex something else.
Mm. And so you can with that you could decide to JG and BT. You're like kind of open to re-rolling Kassadin, and also there are options to transition that late game to non-multi, right? Like, can you think of any
Right, like
option?
warriors.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and if you slam Morello and BT, like that also leaves Warriors as option later.
yeah,
Uh, and you can still play like Rise, though it's not ideal. Like it's BT, you could just stick on some random frontliner.
right, right.
But yeah, just scouting in that stage one
Hmm.
at least gives you a little bit more information as far as uh, making your late game way easier to play. And that's especially when I uh, have been watching Grea's VODs, he
Hmm.
does that like religiously. So
Like
that's just,
avoiding contest spots as much as possible.
yeah. So
Hmm.
I talked a lot with Marcel P about this, and
Yeah.
he had a coaching session with Asa,
Oh
where
yeah.
Asa basically convinced him, like, even if you have the best spot for a three-way contest,
Uh-huh.
um, let's say you have your tempoing, you have an econ augment, you're gonna get to where you want to get before everybody else. Most of the time on 4-2 or even 4-1, if you're rolling down early, you're not gonna hit your like desired two-star forecast right away,
Yeah.
unless you high roll. In which case, if you're a three-way contest and everyone rolls down on 4-2, and let's say there's 5 or 6 copies out of the pool, the average amount of gold that it takes to hit one copy of your forecast, if there's 0 out of the pool, is something like 20 gold. And you can
Yeah.
actually see this with meta TFT's match history like analysis after games.
Hmm.
But if there's 5 units out of the pool of your desired forecast, it goes up to like, it basically doubles. It goes up to like 40 gold.
Yeah. I
Uh,
remember you saying this in your video.
yeah. So basically, if you're playing like three-way contest, your average placement goes down like 1 or 2 slots.
Oh wow,
And
okay.
so much of that can be avoided by scouting in stage one and basically choosing, because the direction between buying this Twitch 2 and slamming IE and Morello, for example, is can send you in a very different direction, right?
Yeah. So do you think that's what you would have done, or would you have just sold Shen and then stayed open after contesting? I mean, after
Um,
scouting.
Yeah, I probably would have sold the Shen because 3 costs are just so expensive, and you don't have a Hecarim. Even if you had a Hecarim, you probably want to play your 3 multis,
Yeah.
and probably Twitch anyway. Like the Twitch 2 could kill more units than just having a, Shen and Hecarim on your board,
Yeah.
and that just leaves your game plan a lot more flexible. It also lets you see the augment before you kind of decide on direction. And if you didn't scout in stage one, then you can still scout in stage two before you decide what slams you make.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely a miss.
Yeah. All right. So what are you thinking here as far as augments?
Um
Oh,
First
also,
one.
can you change your play speed to 2x?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so Martyr I feel like is not really a good early game combat augment. Definitely immediately thinking to roll this one.
Mm-hmm.
Keepers is really good for the multi-line, so I'm gonna hold on to that. And I
Yeah.
know Witchcraft is really strong with the Rise board, but I don't really have. I don't even think I can play 2 Witchcraft right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking reroll 1 and 2, and if I don't get anything better, then probably go Keepers and then play around this multi-line.
Makes sense. And the other thing that's really important with scouting too is if you didn't scout and you just went keepers without scouting, someone else could already have like a pair of Cassidins and
Yeah,
selected an augment like keepers as well. So just something to note.
right. I think I just do a light scout, and I
Yeah.
do.
Okay. So what was your like kind of in your head what the game plan was at this point? You can keep playing. We can talk while the video's
Oh
running.
yeah. Um, just try to tempo stage 2, and hopefully I pick up some Cassidin pairs,
Mm-hmm.
and then it seemed like there were a lot of rerollers, so I thought that it would also benefit my spot to sit and reroll.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could still be open to the warrior line from here. I'm not sure how good it is with keepers. I haven't checked that, but
Yeah, I think okay. It's like more so that the keeper value would let you preserve a ton of HP in the early game.
Yeah. And this guy definitely looked like he was playing some warrior with the clear mind. Or clutter mind, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tough part here is you have no Cassidans.
Yeah. Would you only uh move this line if you had some kind of early Cassidon?
Probably. Um, I don't mind the slams because it's you're having a very strong early game.
Yeah.
But yeah, just as far as game plan goes, like if I don't know what your approach was at this point, but if you're in your head, it's like, oh, I'm hard committed, Cassidon, that might be kind of challenging if you don't hit.
Right. Should still stay open to some other lines, even in this situation.
Yeah. Another suggestion I have is possibly frontlining all of your units because you
Okay.
don't really mind if the Ash uh, isn't in the back, and that walk up time, your melee units are taking damage.
Hmm. I see. I didn't really think about that.
And one thing is, even if you are playing multis, like you're going 7 multi, you can still frontline all of your multis, and Kalista will actually hop back. Oh, you got there.
Maybe I should still second row Ash.
Yeah, yeah. Ash doesn't really do much, so
Yeah.
her shield value would be more valuable than if she dies.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess even if she gets hit a little bit, it's she gets no keeper's value.
Yeah, which looks like it may or may not have been fight diff there.
Oh yeah, huh. Probably if I get the extra shield on the Jax and the Kali, it
Yeah.
probably makes a difference.
Another thing is a suggestion would be that Poppy put it to the right of the Jax, because Bastions at the start of fight get double their armor and MR.
Hmm.
So when the Poppy's not taking aggro there, you're kind of wasting her initial value.
I see.
Which I think if you had done that plus the Ash, you probably would have won that fight that you lost in stage 2.
Yeah, I mean it's so close. Okay, I see. I'm not sure why it's at the second row of my upgrade.
Yeah, and one even further optimization would be to have put the Shen on the outside. I don't know if Shen was able to cast before he died because that stun would have also made a fight tiff.
Hmm. Okay, I see. I choose a slime shiv there,
Mm-hmm.
and I hold the Katarina pair.
Okay, so you're leaving yourself open to warriors.
Yeah. Here I'm thinking. Uh, immediately reroll Blossoming Lotus. Don't really have a great spot for that. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's not really that uh big spike in combat power that I'm looking for, and it's also not great for the multi line.
Yep.
Combat caster I know is really good with warriors, and so is Transfig.
Mhm.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think this is also really good in the multi line.
Okay.
Um, Not sure what I was thinking exactly when I made this decision though. Um, I decided to keep combat caster and reroll number one because I think that if I were to play multis, the Transfig I would lose a lot of value because I don't really have that many opportunities for items. It's like three
Yeah.
item Cassidon, 3 item Hecarim, and then maybe like support items on Callista. But I think I would not be able to like get the full value from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to reroll one, and then I think combat caster. It was kind of felt redundant with keepers.
Mm.
So I decided to go for Capricious Forge. It's also like a good tempo spike in my combat power.
So at this point, how, like, are you kind of still leaving yourself open to rolling Cassidon, or are you like kind of more committed to warriors? Like, which direction are you leaning right now?
I think I'm leaning more towards Cassidon, but
Okay.
I haven't found any yet. So
Yeah. I think if I were playing this game, I'd probably, because it's what, 3-2 now?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I would probably eliminate Cassidon as an option, just because you have zero Cassidons. Like, usually with 2 cost reroll, you want to have 3 combat augments, ideally,
Mhm.
and to be able to hit by like 4-5, like at the latest.
Yeah.
Um, I mean 5-1 at the super latest. But the fact that you have zero of them right now, like it seems unlikely that you might not even hit a 2-star Cassidon before 3-5.
Hmm.
Uh, and the combat caster option with Gwen and Karma, like you have perfect Gwen and Karma items right now.
Yeah.
Seems really juicy. The only problem is you don't have any tiers
Hmm.
for Gwen, but I would strongly consider that line as well.
Okay. I think in my head I've seen that like Karma Warriors wasn't performing as well this patch. So I've
Hmm.
been not trying to, because I think last patch it was like one of my most played like default. So I think I was trying to look for, or I didn't like really want, like it was kind of more of a last resort option. I'm not sure if I should be playing it more regularly, but
Yeah,
that's kind of
I
where I was in my head.
I think I struggle with this a lot too. Is looking at what are the best performing statistical comps,
Uh-huh.
but then kind of this is actually a big thing when I was doing a lot of coaching with appies is
Yep.
finding the right spots and the right conditions for what makes a comp successful. And to
Mm.
do multi reroll, like you need a lot of Cassidons early and hopefully hit ahead of tempo so that you can level, especially since you don't have a multi striker emblem. Like even if you get a Cassidon 3, it's actually not that strong until you can get 7 multis in.
Yeah.
Uh, because it just helps Cassidon stay alive so much easier. Whereas with both keepers and combat caster, Gwen Karma is actually quite strong. And then the other big condition to make Warriors and Karma work is playing from ahead. Like I've tried playing that from behind and lost streaking, and it just doesn't work. But you actually have pretty ideal conditions for it if you have 2 really strong combat augments. Plus, you're playing with a very very strong HP lead, and you can probably continue to tempo here.
I
Whereas
see.
especially on 3-5, if you're able to win the next 2 rounds, then you can push to 7.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're gonna stay at 6 and roll for Cassidy, you're gonna start losing pretty quickly. Because even if you hit your Cassidy 2, it doesn't seem like you're gonna be that strong at the start of stage 4.
I see. Would you consider this even after knowing there's like a clear mind guy who's clearly declared warriors?
Yeah, so I guess that's the other challenging part, though.
Yeah.
One of the problems is that you have keepers here,
Mhm.
but I would even say like, and maybe this is just playing too flexibly. You could also consider Rise as an option because the Shib and the JG could also go on Rise as just like a pure backup.
I see.
Obviously, that's not preferred to Gwen. But I think the decision to stay at 6 and stick with Cassidon just increases your variance so much. Whereas if you even forgetting about what comp you might play in stage 4, if you just
Mhm.
win all of stage 3, like you're probably guaranteed a top 5 or 6.
Yeah,
Whereas if you stick around at 6 and try to roll for Cassidon and you miss, you could easily go 8.
I see. So, okay, it's definitely a higher variance decision. And in the case that I would be playing more flexibly, you would take the combat caster because it's pretty all right on Rise as well.
Yeah,
Okay. Would you ever take Transfiguration?
I would if I had like at least two or three Cassidans, possibly,
Oh,
and maybe
you
also
would.
two Heckrums.
Oh, you would actually if you were like more in the multi line.
Yeah, if I knew for sure I was going multi and I was ahead of tempo and I thought I could win all
Mhm.
of stage three, then I would consider it because then you might be able to get fully itemized Kassadin, Hecarim, and Kalista. I mean, that's obviously in a very high roll state.
Mhm.
So that would be maybe if I already had a cast two and like a pair of Hecarims.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So,
I
but
was
in general,
thinking like along the other lines, like oh, Transfig would definitely be like a fast 8 and kind of not that immediate spike, and
because
not for that multi striker. Yeah.
Transfig you usually want to play with reroll because you just get that you want to roll a lot, right? To get those
Oh, right. To get the
farm every round.
charms. I see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I actually decided to level to 6 and roll for Cassidans
Hmm.
because I think I really didn't want to play contested, and I end up not finding. I find one Cassidan.
Yeah. So you're like
Yeah.
super
So
poor here, and yeah, I would say like yeah, 80% of the game has already been decided by committing to Kassadin here.
okay. So in the case of if oh, okay, I think you're saying like the decision to commit to Cassidan before like even rolling is kind of decided the game.
Yeah, I just feel like because the best case scenario there is you roll down, maybe you hit a cast two with like 20 gold left,
Hmm.
and even then, you move your items over. Maybe best case scenario, you streak all of stage three, but you probably don't want to roll until you like econ back up, right? So like, let's say
Yeah.
you get to 4-1 with a full streak, you're still at 96 HP, and you're at like 50 gold or maybe a little bit more. Even if you do a full roll down on 4-1, like it's unlikely that you hit a cast three. So my guess is in a high roll situation, you probably still bleed a lot of stage four,
Yeah.
and then maybe at 5-1 you do a massive roll down and hit. But then even then, you're stuck at level six. You don't have seven multi. Maybe you high roll like a multi emblem on the 4-2 augment. But then you still might just lose out to some Smolder high roller or like a Kalista 2 high roller or like a Rakan 2 high roller because you get stuck on the Rakan 2, and you just don't have enough gold to like get to 8 and high, and you still need to high roll a Camille on 8. Um, so
Yeah.
I feel like this line is just really hard to play unless you already had like a cast 2 or like at least a cast pair on 3-2, so you could hit a cast 2 on your 3-2 roll down and basically guarantee that you can streak stage all of stage three or at least like most of it. But in this case, it looks like you spent a bunch of gold and you are probably going to lose some rounds in stage three.
Yeah, definitely. I thought my game was doomed at this spot, and I think just having that one Cassidy in stage 2 would make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do natural Cassidy, but I'm still too poor to roll.
Yeah, and then the Capricious Forge pick, like you really ideally want that if you had like a Hecarim 2. Like a Kali 2 just really easily still dies and is quite squishy.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, like she just instantly died against that Veigar, didn't kill it.
Yeah, guess it would even
Like,
be better on the Shen.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like Akali seems really inconsistent. She just like dashes away, especially after they nerfed her mana.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like for Akali to work, you need like Akali 3 and perfect items on her, like Edge of Night, Hodge, IE, or something.
Yeah, I do naturalist Cassidy, which is huge.
Oh, yeah. That's big.
Yeah. Then item payout kind of keeps me not too poor. Would you position this differently or?
I'd probably put Ash in the front grouping and then try to put someone on the outside of a Kali so she's not taking aggro unless you scout it actively and everybody else is opposite side. But right now you're like a Kali is has so much of your team's resource value with the Capricious Forge, and
Uh-huh.
if he takes aggro early and dies, like that's a huge part of your board's value gone.
See. Um I roll one for charm because I could probably still make 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then same idea as earlier. Like the bastions on the outside just gets a lot of early initial value.
Oh, yeah, okay. Even Hecarim then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because your Hecarim's not really anything other than a meat shield at this point.
Hmm.
Okay, so
I
you
get lucky with the
target.
Kassadin too, and I'm able to streak.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if this is valid, but sometimes I do this like if I know you can't see charms on the neutral round, but like when there's like two shops to charm, I'll like roll once, and then like the next shop will be, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like my
Just like
4-1 shop will now have a charm.
yeah, save a
I'm
little
not
time.
sure if it makes a difference. Oh, it's just like a time saver, I guess.
So what are you thinking as far as itemization goes?
Um, Probably. I think I was debating Hodge and QSS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I already have BT, and if I were to make a Hodge, then I'm kind of not really left with many options.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were to make Hodge, I have an open cloak, and then it's like an is that can't be like another BT and maybe like even shroud. But then I wasn't really happy with that, so I ended up slamming QSS. And since I'm on a 5 streak, I think I just end up slamming the Protector's Vow here as well.
Okay. So one other option here is you can do JG Hodge on Cassidon and Sterax BT on Hecarim.
Hmm.
Although you're splitting items, which isn't ideal. But as far as like longer term value, that's probably going to be a lot stronger. Uh,
Okay, and then would you prioritize a QSS or like a Titans after that?
yeah, QSS is great on Cassidon. The other option is you could just move the Capricious over to the Hecarim.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't think I end up doing that actually, which is probably a lot stronger. He has a lot of good artifacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe I should put the Hecarim not stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, you also didn't get the whole Crusher value on the Kali that fight, though. It doesn't seem like it mattered.
Would you have went for the whole crusher value instead of
Yeah, I
is it
think it's like something like
600?
600 HP versus Keeper's Shield is like one something per unit next to it. And plus you had like all those dummies. So you could have
Right.
just used dummies. Oh, okay. So you did get the
Yeah.
multi-strike round.
So that's pretty high roll. I was thinking about. I know what the forge is kind of good, but I have good items already, and it's kind of a no-brainer. I think.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I get really good shops here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
level 6 Kalista, and then another Kassadin. I don't- I think I don't have enough time to send it. Yeah,
Were there other two cost rerollers this game?
there was a bunch of mage rerollers, I believe.
Interesting. Usually
That
Mage
was
is like
also part
one
of
and three.
my. Yeah, I'm not sure. Uh, are there any like other 2 cost rerolls that are like relevant?
Maybe like Kog'Maw, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah,
All right, that's really good. The only
Yeah,
problem is
I
you're
hit.
still at level 6 on 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I guess
that's
it's
like the
almost even.
difference where if you had like a early Kassadin pair by like 3-2,
Hmm.
it that could be like a 20 or 30 gold difference here.
Yeah.
And you still want to get to level 8, which is very challenging. Yeah, in an ideal world, you can swap the BT and Hodge on the
Yeah.
cast. The other thing is I would suggest swapping the Hecarim and the Akali there.
Okay. I was thinking like a colleague can maybe dash to the top right corner.
Uh,
I'm not sure if that's like a reliable.
yeah, I'm curious how often that happens as opposed to dashing towards the middle.
Yeah, probably not too often.
Because
Would you
you
change
ideally
any?
want your Kassadin and your Hecarim to hit the same units. Because Hecarim also has a cleave on his ability.
Yeah. So like right next to him, and then try to crack the front line.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah,
That
and
probably
here,
would have been a difference in a few fights.
yeah, and I would also move the Kalista up because Kalista is gonna move backwards anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whenever you do keepers with this multi-line, Kalista front line works fine because she eventually moves back.
Okay. I wasn't sure how like consistent that was. So I was a little scared to do it, but I got like 7-0 after hitting, so I was like, is this really that good? It was just like in the beginning of the patch, and it's averaging a 2.
Yeah. Oh, was this before B patch?
Oh no, no, it was after B patch.
Okay.
It said make Morello.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely need that against like the Callista board.
Yeah, and then I'm like kind of struggling with gold here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to do. Like I definitely can't level yet.
Yeah, from here it seems like if you get a top 5, it's like pretty good.
Hmm,
Well,
okay.
maybe top 4, like fourth. Um, it seems hard to like cap because what you okay, you hit the Akali. Like you want to get the Hecarim 3 plus, and I saw there's some other players holding Hecarim, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to hit the Hecarim 3 and then also get Arcana in, which you want to get to 8, get Camille and Hecarim, or I mean Arcana. So it's just challenging with the amount of gold that you have.
Hmm. So you think this might just be a line selection, not understanding the condition of early Cassidans or not valuing early Cassidans as much?
I think so, though. I mean, in hindsight, that you definitely did hit.
Yeah, made up for it later.
But I think this is probably a high roll scenario, and even then, like you're out of gold and kind of running out of steam.
I see. I think right now I think I'll be lucky if I make it to level 8. Just
Yeah,
rolling for combat charms. Also, is that a thing? Like, does Yumi have a health bar? Can I kill Yumi?
I have seen in a VOD before that
Just
a
like
Frost unit killed Yumi, or like Frostboard killed Yumi and then cloned the Yumi. So I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, yeah, I just
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a huge win.
So here, what are you thinking as far as like rolling more versus leveling?
So I think that's kind of the other main idea left in the game, but leveling for Tom 1 doesn't seem as good as hitting Hecarim 3, and given that there's I think maybe two mage players in the top 5 still,
Mm-hmm.
I really thought there was a high chance that I would be able to hit.
Mm.
So I was just kind of biding my time and waiting. I think I thought it was premature to level right now, but maybe I should have. Maybe that could have made the difference this round. It's got a really strong board. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it would have made a difference.
The durability would make a big difference for your melee units, but maybe not enough for a fight diff there.
Hmm.
Another thing, especially for against these solo frontliners like
Hmm.
Rakan or Vex, there,
Hmm.
uh, possibly considering trying to put your Kassadin on um, the outsides,
Okay.
allowing him to wrap could be a way that you can scam some of these fights.
Okay. And sacrificing keeper's value is fine this late.
Yeah, I would just put like, uh, for example, Kassadin on the outside and then Kalista right behind, and Kalista will bounce back, so you can still
Oh, okay.
maintain some of that keeper value, and
I
even
see.
just Ash in the second row as well.
Yeah. Um. Here is like what I was talking about. I kind of look around, and then I think the fifth player and the first player are both holding Vegars,
Hmm.
and then I decide to roll down here. This was really expensive, but
Yeah.
this might
Um,
have been the difference of me hitting and not hitting.
yeah, that was an idea that Basso Skills really drove home for me. Is if your board is incomplete,
Hmm.
unless you're on one life, or if you think that surviving this one round will make the difference in one placement because someone else like will die in the time that you would lose twice.
Yeah.
Unless that is true, then especially because Hecarim 3 could be a win con for you,
Yeah.
I would avoid taking any combat charm and only take econ charm because you still have two lives here, so you can still sack one. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about with win conditions and
Right.
being actively scouting. Like even if you, the thing is, if you hit a Hecarim 3 and you still think you're going to lose out, then definitely take this dragon. But if you feel like you have the possibility of winning out, if you hit
Mhm.
Heck 3, then probably avoid taking the dragon.
I wasn't really confident that Heck 3 would win me. This guy just hit level 10 and like the learning to spell Vagar. Actually did
So
beat him last day. I'm not sure, but
yeah. So then the other thing is, if you actually don't think that you have the uh, possibility of capping out with Heck 3 and winning out, then
Mhm.
that would also be potentially buy dragon and then level for TK instead.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're kind of taking this middle ground, you kind of get stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I see. That's what we are talking about earlier. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. Also, if I were to go 8 here, would you drop Pyro and Bastion for 3 Arcana?
Uh,
I guess that's quickly checkable in the stats.
yeah, like
I can do that
you're
later,
mainly
yeah.
doing that for a little bit extra AD, which
Mhm.
if Kassadin's going to be your main carry, it doesn't really benefit him that much, and you don't get extra DR. So I'd probably stick with
Oh,
the
okay. I see.
because yeah, because your Hecarim wants that extra armor magic resist as well.
I see. I see. Yeah, so I end up in that middle ground.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I found a lot of Vagars and Shens, but I wasn't able to
Yeah, so like in this fight, if your Kassadin was all the way on the right, you might have had the opportunity for Kassadin just as like walk to the back line and wrap around and kill the Vagar.
yeah. Maybe even on the left too. I probably hit this, and then to the
Yeah,
chance I
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Especially against these super tanks, right? Like you don't want to get stuck on them, and then you're wasting a lot of damage on that crown guard. Like you prefer for that crown guard shield to just expire.
Hmm. Okay. And then I buy another combat charm.
Yeah.
The 10 gold definitely made a difference here.
Yeah. You were just one off, like possibly one or two rolls off.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference in my game once I got that hack. Because there's so many people that's like, oh, once you hit stage 5, you should always roll for a combat charm, right?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the one caveat is that's true if you finished your board.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Cool.
Especially like Dragon, I guess. It's super expensive.
Yeah.
It's also really close. It could have also been a left to right positioning diff here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think Hecarim was able to semi-wrap, but the Cassidon was there, maybe.
Hmm. So, what are your takeaways from this kind of VOD review game?
Um, the combat charm thing, I think I'm still not comfortable not taking combat charm, especially when there's like another guy low HP. But I think I should have recognized that I was 2 lives, and that makes like a bigger difference.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I think recognizing the conditions for something like Cassidon, I think I tend to try to angle it a little more than I probably should, and recognizing that that 3-2 spot for warriors probably would have, you know, like instead of committing to the higher variance line, I think, yeah, being open to warriors was probably the better option there. I think I kind of uh prioritize some comps based on stats, but maybe I should get a little bit away from that if I have like such good of a spot.
Hmm.
Hmm. I'm not too sure about what else. I think the last half of the game kind of played itself because I put myself in a bad situation from committing all my gold in stage 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
The one other suggestion I would have is to scout more actively in stage 1 and identifying, because the other really big inflection point in this game was whether you decide to slam that JGBT as opposed to IE Morello.
Yeah.
And I don't think I saw, maybe I didn't notice, but I don't think I saw anybody in this game playing Hunters or Varus. I might be misremembering.
I don't think there was any. Yeah, I don't think there was any. There was a Kalista, Karma, and 2 Mage players, I think.
Yeah, because early game, like that shapeshifter line with Hunters early game is really strong, and you have like a huge, really high cap out.
Hmm.
Um, and you would have, I think, still been able to streak because you had a strong front line and back line, but you didn't even really play around the Twitch in that early game.
Yeah.
And once you slammed that JG and BT, you were kind of committed to Cassidon and obviously the not ideal warrior line. Whereas the IE option would have left you a lot more possibilities because you could play Varus, but you could also play Jinx. Like you could stick like IE is not great on Jinx, but you could still like stick it there in the beginning and then move it to Olaf later.
Yeah. And maybe I'll just like play more of an AD flex. Like I can do the Hunter or Varus or Jinx, like you said, if there's enough Mage rerollers, maybe.
Yeah. But it
Yeah,
also
that makes
depends how
sense.
comfortable you are playing like kind of the AD lines.
I think I was comfortable on Varus last patch, and the shapeshifter I'm still working on. I haven't been able to play it as much as I'd like because it's been super contested recently. It's kind of like blowing up recently.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
if I were to consider this hunter line, what
Hmm.
what would be your like augment choice decisions? Would you still take keepers for the tempo because I have a strong opener?
I would probably take big gains.
Oh, really big gains?
With shapeshifters, big gains is so strong. The tough part is you don't really have there was an Elise in shop.
Yeah, there
Um,
was.
or actually, I think it'd be big gains, or you have my bow actually, because you could do IE and Rage Blade, and then that Rage Blade is really strong on Smolder later. The tough part is actually getting there, but uh, if you can in the mid game get a Nomsy 2, Twitch 2, and Shyvana 2, and I know that's like kind of some big ifs, uh, that can be quite a strong mid game. And the thing with you have my bow is you can still leave yourself open to like Jinx or even Kalista. But your items aren't great for Callista. The
Yeah,
sword and glove.
I
Yeah,
see. Okay, yeah,
big
that
games
makes
is
sense.
tough because
If
you
I
don't
had
have.
shape upgrade, then maybe big gains.
Yeah, if you already had like a Elise pair and a Jace and a Twitch 2, that would like instant click big gains.
Oh wow, okay, that was not on my radar.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
with shapeshifters, you get that scaling over time. It gets really strong. That's like a play for first angle.
okay, I see. Yeah, I think so scouting early, playing uncontested lines, and then the decision at 3-2 with no Cassidans.
Yeah, I
Probably
think
should
if you
avoid
had
those
just
spots.
Yeah, if you had just tempoed stage 3 and then pushed levels, I mean, you did high roll the Cassidy, but you still ran out of steam. I
Yeah.
suspect you might have, like, I think it may have been an easier top 4. I'm not sure, because you did kind of high roll as well. So, but I
Hmm.
think you probably hit like the top 10th percentile case, and I think in like 90% of games you end up lower than a fifth.
Okay, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just like again not sure about the line selection part, but what you said makes a lot of sense.
Hmm. All right, cool.